You've been wandering the weird wood for days. No sign of food or water is visible.
No worry. Crunchus Munchus. I cast Create Food and Water.
You find a mysterious sword.
Arcanus. Revealus. I cast Detect Magic.
The hall before you is full of goblins.
I think I've got an answer for this one too. Lightness Among Us. I cast Lightning Bolt. Welcome to Nerdarchy, a place for news, views, and homebrews for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, as well as other role-playing games.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to tune to that notification bell.
Alright, man. We've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for a while. We're now into the 5th iteration of the game. We've seen many versions of a magic system for D&D. I mean, it's kind of built off of the same bones, but it's changed a lot over the years.
I started in 2nd edition, you started in 1st edition, and the number of jokes that, have spawned over the years about the wizard being able to cast his one spell before, he's got to pull out a dagger or whack things with a quarterstaff, are ripe, and are entirely true.
And that being said, that kind of brings us to the heart of the discussion, how hard, it was to have magic early in the game compared to now where everything's magic and it seems like you can fix every problem and you can do it with magic and you can do it pretty fast. So we're going to kind of ask the question, has magic, become the easy button for 5e D&D and making magic actually very unmagical in the game?
It's really true. Has demonstrated in our opening, there's so many things that magic just whisks away the problem. Now, depending upon the kind of game that you're playing, it's really going to make a determination as to, what kind of things you can do. It's with the current rule set, you can't run a typical survivalist game. Oh, I've got an outlander, so we never have to worry about food. Oh, we've got a cleric who can create food and water. Two easy problems or two easy solutions, for a problem that was ripe in earlier editions that we played.
Well, before we get into that, let's kind of get into a brief history of Magic and D&D and our experience with it. Yeah, maybe we can speak to a little bit of pros and cons and what we liked and we didn't like throughout the years. So I'll speak to 1E first, since you didn't play it.
That's true.
And that's where I kind of cut my teeth, and that's where I started with my D&D career. And that's really where the wizard, you started off. You had a spell. Once you cast it, you were done. You had a die 4 hit points plus your con. And
if you had a high con.
If you had a high con, so you're magic missile, I hide for the rest of the day. Because if you have to use your weapons, which were a quarterstaff and a dagger, is what you were proficient with, things have gone horribly wrong, and you're probably going to be rolling up a new character soon.
Very true.
And now, in the early editions, as you got higher, the mages got super powerful compared to the other classes, but, getting there was the hard part.
And you also leveled half as fast as the thief.
Well, that's a good point. The progression for XP in earlier editions was different, and the spellcaster, the mage, actually had the slowest progression. Then the thief and the cleric did a little bit better, and the cleric actually did a little bit better as far as getting spells because they would get some bonus spells based off of their wisdom bonus.
Yeah, and that's nice, but still, you're still limited on the number of spells that you can be able to cast. And there was no max hit points at level 1. There were some GMs who played it that way, but by rules, you still rolled. We had a game that you ran years ago where we had a 7th level character who had 15 hit points.
Necromancer of Doom.
and it's that kind of character wouldn't survive 5th edition.
It would be really brutal. So now moving from first edition to second edition, which is where you basically cut your teeth,
Absolutely.
there actually wasn't a whole lot of differences between them. It was really like a minor shift in the game. They started adding more options and you could do more things, but a lot of the stuff from 1E really did just carry over.
And as we look at it, you've got those choices. Wizards, it took 2,500 XP to gain a level, whereas the thief was literally half of that, and therefore you could level up that much quicker. The thief had the better hit die, so wizards really got hit hard, and you get to 0, you're gonna die. It's
by better he means die 6 instead of a die 4. and you didn't have sneak attack, you had backstab back then.
And the rules for backstab were literally you had to be behind and
stab them in their back.
Stab them in their back. None of this. I'm next to a dude. Haha.
So 3E is where we start to see some real love kind of flow towards our spellcasters and give them more options.
So you got these 0th level spells you could cast a certain number of times a day, and you got more spells at first level than any previous edition, which wound up. We see some of that carrying over into 5th edition. So you got more spells, and it blew a lot of people's minds. It's like.
In 3rd edition, they also introduced, in addition to cantrips and orisons, was the fact that everybody got bonus spells for high stats. So that was another way that you're going to get more casting out of your wizard. And not only that, it was opened up to them what weapons they could use. So now they could use not just a dagger and a staff, but maybe a crossbow as well.
So being able to have a ranged attack once your spells were done means you didn't have to kind of get up into melee or carry 40 daggers and throw them from 20 feet away.
Now, when it comes to Magic and Dungeons and Dragons, I feel like 4th edition was the game changer. This is the one that kind of like threw out everything that came before it and started anew. You had at-will cantrips, so you never had to use a crossbow. You never had to use something as mundane as a dagger. You always had access to at least your cantrips.
And your at-wills got stronger as you leveled. I had a wizard who was an Eladrin that I look back and I remember a scene where there was a wall filled with all of these, horrible monster eggs. And my at-will power was it was like a 3x3 grid that I was able to just, bring down upon this wall over and over again. And as opposed to having to stab these things one by one, I killed 15 foot of the wall at a time, just by going pew, 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 pew. And that was like, wow, I could do this forever.
Yeah, that and ritual spells, which meant you were going to have access to certain spells, like in 5e, where you could just cast them. It just took longer. But both of those things combined to make your character feel like a wizard at first level. So going from AD&D to Dungeons and Dragons, 3rd and onward, it was a magic user, then it's a wizard. Well, in 3rd edition at first level, you really didn't feel like a wizard. But in 4th edition, even at first level, I felt like you felt like a wizard, right? You could cast spells all the time. You didn't run out. You didn't have to be mundane about it. But one of the side effects to that is, you're introducing more and more magic into the world.
Absolutely. And if you look at, the current craze where Harry Potter is super popular, none of the books, none of the movies, does someone ever feel like, oh, I've run out of magic? So you get to just keep casting spells. And that's kind of where we now feel with 5th edition, the cantrips being at will as they were kind of in 4th edition. And as a wizard, I can cast Firebolt, or I can cast as a cleric Spare the Dying until I just pass out from exhaustion.
So that brings us to 5th edition. With 4th, and now with 5th as well, we've thrown out those bonus spells. We have those at wills. We have ritual spells. And really, it's changed the landscape for Magic in the D&D game.
So Magic, has it become, the mundane? Is it really just the easy button?
I don't know, Ted. Forget the easy button because we got Easy Roller Dice. They've been with us for a long time and we want to thank them, whether it's your first set of dice or your 1 millionth set of dice. Easy Roller Dice for all your dice rolling needs. Down in the description, you can find a link to Easy Roller Dice as well as a one-time coupon code to get yourself a whopping 20% off on Easy Roller Dice, as well as a Gleam contest that you can join to get some Easy Roller Dice swag in your life.
So, are spells really, messing things up for us?
Well, it's just changed the way the game is played. And it might even be why a lot of folks have gravitated towards more OSR games, where it is more of that old school feel and that attrition, because that's kind of one of the problems. We just don't, it's hard to have that kind of attrition in a game where you can just snap your fingers, say some, mutter some arcane words or divine words or a prayer, and you fix it.
All right, so, and as I said earlier, the survivalist type game where you want food, to be scarce and to be limited, first level druid spell, Goodberry, create food and water, another low level spell that, it's, fixes those kind of problems. And with the increased number of castings that we get with 5th edition as opposed to, first and second, one's like, I'll burn one to alleviate this problem.
It does make it really easy. And, it begs the question, is the sheer amount of magic in the game, is it killing role-playing and removing opportunities for adventure?
Well, that's a tough question. I don't think it's going to kill role-playing or remove the opportunities. I honestly think it's changing it, but it's removing certain types of adventure that someone might want to do.
For example?
Well, I can recall, countless times in earlier editions when it's like, all right, we gotta set camp for the night. And back then, sessions were ripe with random encounters. And that means someone's got to set a watch, someone's got to take care of. Well, low level, 3rd level, you wind up getting, Leomond's Tiny Hut, or high levels, you can get, Magnificent Mansion. And these spells, just like, I don't have to worry about that. There's this, slate door that I can walk through, and if the spellcaster didn't give me permission, I can't get in. So there's no harming it. There's no attacking the door. You might not even be able to see it unless your perception's high enough. So, you've just removed a whole part of the game where it's like, because at the end of that, full hit points, full spells.
Yeah, I mean, really, there is no threat or danger to your long rest anymore if you have a cat. Once you hit 5th level, right, it's pretty much, it doesn't matter anymore. Because I rarely see parties that don't take those spells. Also, it was brought up in the D&D Languages video that we did in the comments, the spell Tongues. Every full caster but the druid has access to that spell. And so now, if you want to kind of do something where, language is a barrier and you kind of want to do the fish out of water story, well, once they have access to Tongues, forget about it. You can't do that anymore. And because clerics prepare their spells, all they need to do is take a rest, and the next day they can talk to everybody if they need to, or if they know they're going into an area. If the wizard happens to have it in his spell book, same thing. They just have to know to prepare that spell, and bam, it's done. Easy.
Solves that problem. Mystery games of we need to find an object. Things like scrying or locate object allow you to just be like, yep, that direction, or this is where it is. And those mysteries of you might spend session after session searching around and checking locations, role playing with NPCs that might have some information, figuring out are they lying or are they not. All of that is just negated by a couple spells.
Yeah, and that's the area where I think the biggest loss is not so much when they can overcome problems in combat and things like that. It's when they can circumnavigate role-playing scenes and adventure, right? Like, you need to figure out what this item does. And now it's like, forget about the fact that you can cast a detect magic and identify on it. But, you just handle it during a short rest now, and the rules are like, what it is now.
If you play by raw, you need identify to figure stuff out in our home games, because, that really just, it's too much. I remember in our early days of playing, like, identify wasn't an option for players. You had to go find somebody, and it was 100 gold per item to identify that we had to do. And you had to find an NPC, get this figured out. They would handle it. They would basically be casting identify, and they'd give you the information. Hopefully they were telling you the truth. Hopefully they weren't just causing a sham or a scam on you. And there was role-playing that went alongside of that. Certain powerful magic items, you needed more powerful spells than identify to really figure out. So just, being able to remove the mystery and the exploration. Because there were many times that it's like, yeah, I don't have the funds to get this identified. I want to figure it out. Now, yeah, it was a hassle of the DM trying to remember, okay, well, when Ted swings a sword, he's using a +1. So the armor class for this is actually 1 lower, and he's going to do an extra point of damage. But the mystery of being able to figure things out is a lot of fun. That's one of the pillars of the game that falls under exploration. I recall I had a character who, in 3rd edition, who wound up using a double-bladed sword. It was ripe with the time of when Star Wars Episode 1 came out. Double-bladed lightsaber was a amazing thing, and I built my character kind of based off of Darth Maul. Of course, nowhere near as powerful. And Dave wound up putting a magic item in that I had for like 3 levels before I even had any clue as to what it was. It wound up being that double-bladed lightsaber, but it looked just like a candlestick. And we just held on to it until we found somebody that could actually, you want to get this thing identified?
I believe early on you could get identified, but you just had so many less resources to work with that it was a little bit less likely. I mean, even in one of my more recent games where, like we said, we just house rule, you need someone to identify an item for you. You can't just handle it automatically. No, we know that's not raw. But with the Sister Scarlet, so now they always have like an NPC they would go to and get that done because they had a small party. So they actually didn't have someone that could do that for them. So, but it was kind of cool because they got to go, oh, well, this is an excuse to go visit these series of NPCs who we like to talk to and interact with. And sometimes it'd be simple. No, you exchange the gold and you get what you need. And other times it'd be a role-playing scene. So that's where it becomes kind of a bit of a sadness for me, is when we're taking away role-playing scenes and opportunities to go out and adventure and go on a quest to figure out what this thing does or where something is, instead of like just casting a spell. With Eberron, we really saw magic begin to broaden out a lot into a campaign setting. And it's great to run a game like that and have games like that. But if you want to run a lower magic setting and have magic be more magical and mysterious, it really is hard with the 5th edition rule set. You're going to have to do some tweaking and some limiting. And, your players are probably not going to like that. And also, like, you just get so many more spells now than you did in 1E and 2E. 3rd, you got even more spells. In 5th, they kind of pulled that back a little bit because you don't get as many as those higher level spells. But you're getting the at-will cantrips as well as the ritual magic that kind of like evens that out.
Well, and you mentioned the low magic. Well, magic has seeped into every single character class that's out there. With the inclusion of the archetypes or subclasses in Xanathar's Guide, you even have access to magic as a barbarian.
Yeah, no class has a non-magical bent to them now.
So it's literally steeped everywhere. So that if you were to decide, I want to run a low magic game or a no magic game, you are literally stripping out, down to almost nothing character class wise.
Yeah. So the question is this a problem? Does it matter? I don't know that it does. It's just the way the play style has evolved over the years. And some older gamers might be, longing for a different time long ago where they played the rules rules differently, or maybe even new players are curious about how the game ran before. I don't think one is right and the other is wrong. They're just different ways of playing the game. They both have different elements that one can enjoy. But the question is, what do you guys think? How do you prefer to play the game? Do you like the way it is now? Do you like it better back in the old days? Do you want something in between? We'd love to hear about it. We got a place where we can talk about it. That is down in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
While you're down there, don't forget to stop by the description and check out Easy Roller Dice and that contest.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.